The Army Painter is my favorite hobby company in the entire world. My desk is literally full of Army Painter products, and it takes me from being an average painter to putting above tabletop standard models out into the tournament scene. Not only that, but the Army Painter has sponsored more competitive play than any other hobby company in the industry. They allow us to keep doing the things that we do. If you enjoy the Army Painter as much as I do, head over to thearmypainter.com where you can use the discount code ARTOFWAR5 to get a discount on your next order. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Art of War. We are here to do Fix My List, a feature that we used to have quite often.
It was my baby for a while, but we discontinued my baby. We took my baby out back and just left it there. You're not supposed to do that to babies, but we did it.
But it grew up, and this is what we're going to be doing today, which is kind of breaking down some of our War members' lists, analyzing them, kind of taking in their feedback and what they, their main desires for it. And then, sometimes they have a particular unit they really want to build around. Maybe it's a particular archetype. Maybe they just have a random collection of units and want to try and make it as efficient as possible. So we take those lists and we try and make them as best as possible. And if you are new to 40K or you haven't really designed too many lists, you kind of go onto Reddit or something and grab lists and play those. Well, this will give you good insight into the framework, the questions, all the stuff that goes into designing a list.
That's right. So, building a list is definitely a skill, and building your own list is kind of like, making your own lightsaber, right? Like, why all the parts are there, which is very important. I believe that you can take somebody else's list and you can play it. You can do well with it. Mm-hmm. But I think you will do 90%, 95% as well as they will, because they know why every piece is in that list to solve for every particular situation that they might run into. So I am a big believer in writing your own lists, personally. I think it's a really good skill. I think it's something that is really good to work on, and that's what we do here, basically. We run you through why we make the decisions we make in list writing, and what does it look like when we're making a list.
Absolutely.
Ourselves.
This show is going to rotate through, so it's not going to be every single week like it used to be, but it'll show up probably around once a month or so, I would say, but we haven't had a hard fix. If there's a lot of really interesting lists, we might do it more often. And the way to actually submit your list is it's part of our loyalty program in the War Room. So if you've been subscribed for the War Room for 3 consecutive months on the War Room Golds or on the VHX platform, you will get the War Room Elite tag. And with that, you get access to the Fix My List. And there's going to be a second one called Roast My List, which people are interested in. We're going to do that one occasionally, which will be more lighthearted, more fun, less 40K serious.
We get Nick's latest list on every single one.
We're doing it. We're going to put the Land Raider list on there. That's going to be the first list.
Perfect. Unfixable. You can't put on Fix My List. One of the things that was the reason why Fix My List ended was because everyone would just net list and send in like, Liam VSL won LGT with this list. I'll send it to Fix My List. That was the problem. It got there's one of them, but it got so difficult to find lists that people actually wrote themselves that have flaws to work on that are interesting to talk about, not just, I think this unit's better than this unit, right? So if you are sending in a list for Fix My List, please don't just send in, what did you say, Brian Sipes Orc list? Stop, please. Or Fix My List. Yeah, this is good. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, if you just copy paste any of the lists. Now, you could take the core of that and then build around it, or you could have an interesting take on it, maybe using a totally different detachment. Liam VSL out of nowhere was playing Veterans of the Long War, but many normal Chaos Space Marines. That's a very interesting thing to look at. So, without further ado, if you are joining us, please do give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about us. All of that massively helps us grow. In addition, if you want to be able to submit your list for Fix My List, check out the War Room at thewarroom.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial, and in addition to that, you get content for every single faction in the game and access to our awesome Discord community, which is very international and has people of all skill levels. So if you're new to the game, don't feel intimidated. Come on in. There's plenty of people to help you with list design, with getting better at the faction, and tons of other content videos as well, like Jack Theory, that'll help you think about the game in important ways. All right, here we go. We're going to start off with J.K. Lucy's Tau Auxiliary Cadre. And so usually when somebody submits a list, they'll put some criteria or specific units they really want to keep. For this one, it's just that J.K. Lucy here is going to be playing singles and teams and wants to play Auxiliary Cadre, the brand new Grotmist detachment. But other than that, the list is completely wide open. So, with that being said, for me, in my opinion, Tau is an army, at least Auxiliary Cadre, which isn't really going to be blowing people out. I think it's going to be largely a defender list, or it's going to try and blunt something. I don't think you're going to try and open up big scores with Auxiliary Cadre. I think if you want to do that, you're going to go for Monka, and you're try to get aggressive early, or your opponent plays so defensive in the early turns that you get a big lead that way.
Yeah, it's especially if you're aiming for a list to play for both singles and teams. Your role in singles is not to try to blow people out, right? Because, I mean, if that happens, grand. But you're trying to win as many games as possible, not win by as much as possible. Because, a WTC 20-0 is the same as a 10-10 that you're up on points. Like, it's the same for singles. So a list you design for singles is going to be different than a list you design for teams. Generally, not always the case. And the one overlap is for somebody on the team whose design is to either blunt a lot of things, i.e. not give up a ton of points, or just consistently get a small win. That is a role in teams. You don't need a lot of those people, but you need some. So that's the role we're going to design for if you want a singles list to translate into a teams list.
Yep, and I think that fits Tau's already what they do well. Especially Auxiliary Cadre, which is throwing out a lot of cheap stuff. You're getting the additional AP, you're guiding things. So you need a lot of cheap units, and that fulfills a role where you're always scoring points. You're very good at secondaries. You're very good at contesting objectives, and that usually results in a relatively close game. So we're going to lean on that.
Yep, we're looking for a list that does good into everything, but doesn't try to lean super hard into good matchups, right?
Yep.
Just tries to have a consistent game across the board into a lot of matchups.
So let's start with the easy stuff. The 2 Razor Sharks.
So what is in this list? Let's
go through what's in the list. So 2 commanders. One is a Cold Star, one's an Enforcer. They both go in the Fire Knife suits and add additional firepower and some buffs. The Firesight team has Admired Leader. This is an enhancement to give out extra OC to your auxiliary units. So you can make Crew Carnivores OC3, your Vespid can be OC2. You get to pump out that OC in your command phase. Then the 1 unit of Pathfinders is to infiltrate and scout. So you can block people very early and control the center. 3 units of Crew Carnivores, they open up the auxiliary rule here, where if they are within 9 and visible of enemy units, all your normal Tau units get +1 AP against them. So your Fire Knife go to AP2. Your Sky Rays can go to AP4. There's a lot of cool breakpoints for Tau. And then you have 3 units of Crute Hounds here. They gain OC from Admired Leader if you decide to give it to them. There's no crew character here to give them the OC, so you have to do it via Admired Leader. Then 3 Skyray gunships, nice long-range firepower.
Skyray, sorry, not Hammerhead. Yeah, Skyray. Pretty good anti-tank.
Yep, it's a relatively efficient tank by itself. It doesn't need guiding as much because it's twin-linked natively and has a reroll to hit.
That's pretty good.
2 Razor Shark strike fighters. These are playing with just guns, no bombing. And then 3 units of stealth suits for the guiding, reroll 1s to hit, 1s to wounds. And then 2 Vespid Stingwing units, which are great mission play here and can go back in reserve.
The Razor Sharks feel a lot more like a team's tech for me than singles.
Oh, yeah.
Because the idea here is to take really good matchups and punish them. If you're weak to shooting, i.e. Tau, they're going to show up and you can't avoid them, right? The way to draw shooting is to hide from the guns and try to score. But if you can't hide from the guns, that pushes a differential on your opponent because you can shoot them. They can't hide from you. You're going to get a higher score and you're going to push a differential. But if your opponent can deal with them easily, like has good long-range shooting, they do go down because they can't hide themselves. So I know you started to mention the Razor Sharks. That's why I think for a singles or a take-all-comers list, that's why I think they should probably go. But I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it.
The philosophy of why they're here is that, as you mentioned, they can come down, use the aircraft rule to be able to shoot across terrain, and their data sheet rule is +1 to hit against non-fly units.
Yeah, they do hit quite hard.
So they can limit the power or the downside of not being guided, which is a huge downside for
Tau.
Tau.
They can guide for each other, right? You can show up with one and guide for the other one.
Exactly. So you want to run at least 2 of them to synergize in that way. However, it is very much I am trying to open up a score gap here, and I don't think that is what you want to do with Auxiliary Katra, because the other tools aren't really helping there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if you're taking this in singles and teams, I think we prioritize singles first, and then that list will be good at holding most things to a decent score. We don't try to put in teams tech and then just make it work for singles, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So I would cut them first, personally. If you really want an aggressive list, switch to Monka, and then you can try this tech and do some nasty things with it. But I think this is the first thing that goes here. Next up is you don't have a Kroot character, so Kroot Hounds only gain OC through Admired Leader. And you do want them to have OC so that they can do cleanse or contest an objective and whatnot. So I don't think you actually want this many of them.
3 units you think is just not going to get enough value from one enhancement that has to be in range, that has to point at them at the right time.
And really, in my opinion, Vespid are the primary target that you're going to be giving them to.
OC2 at that point?
OC2.
Yeah, it's a really good objective steal.
10 OC just goes and grabs an objective because they're so fast. They can flat 6 advance in this detachment. So I think that's a pretty easy fix. And we're going to go ahead and add in a third unit because I think they are that good. They are the best auxiliary piece.
They are very good, mostly because they're fast, right?
Natively fast. They have Deep Strike, so they can rapid ingress into a great spot. There's an enhancement to give Kroot Carnivores a Deep Strike, but you have to add a character, add an enhancement. It gets pricey. So they're fantastic. I've considered running a 10-man myself, but I think the 3-mans are good for now.
3 5-mans, yeah.
Yeah, the 3 5-mans.
Now, that being said, I think we're like 365 points left at this point.
Yep.
I would say.
Let me grab the list here.
I think we need a little more guns than 3 Skyrays and 2 Fire Knives. That's my first thought.
Yes, 100%. So, in my opinion, I don't like running many Skyrays because they have a low rate of fire, and I like having the option of some amount of hammerheads because they're good into vehicles and they can double up as killing elite infantry.
Yeah. They also are there's only so many that can be good at one point in time. If you see my Jack theory in the war room last week, I talked about the 2 basically main angles on the board, main firing lanes that you want to control. And there's basically 2 of them. One's running from the bottom of your deployment zone to the top of your opponent's deployment zone, and one running from top corner down to the bottom right. And there's only basically 2 long angles that exist on the board. And so having a Skyray parked up in each of those is probably the extent to the Skyrays that can exist in a good position on the board that feels solid. It's the same way as Caladius, right? Caladius, I never have more than 2, even though they're so good, just because 3 doesn't have good places to go with long-range anti-tank fire. So I would probably cap out at 2. You want me to get that?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So with the old hammerheads there, I'm going to go ahead and put Ion on them. And the reason that Ion is very good is not only does it double at killing elite infantry with that flat 3 damage and the blast, but on top of that, you can, in this detachment, give it additional strength. And additional strength brings it to the break point of either strength 9, or more importantly, if you're near auxiliaries, you're going to get up to strength 10. And strength 10 is the point where it'll go into most vehicles quite well, and is going to do damage into those T3, like Terminator bodies and whatnot, or T5, so you can wound them on 2s. So I would personally go to 1 Skyray and then 2 Hammerheads. I think that's been a very nice mix in the testing that I've done personally. You don't want to go all in on that because, as I said, there's a stratagem that really elevates their damage. And I think Hammerhead is one of the best uses of using that stratagem for the additional strength.
Yeah, so the Skyray will basically always take what I call the long angle, which is all the way in the top left-hand corner of the board, seeing the longest possible lines of sight and just sitting at the end of that and being like, I wish, a fellow would.
All right, so let's go ahead and add those hammerheads in here.
I do think there could be call to add a second Skyray, just 2 hammerheads, 2 Skyrays.
We're going to go and add a 2-man broadside unit because I personally, in this detachment, you can advance and shoot them.
Never mind, they take that long angle I was talking about up in the top left.
I kind of prefer them to Skyrays. I like a Skyray as a relatively cheap thing, but the broadsides for me are more consistent in their damage dealing. They have an additional AP, which is not always needed, but they have more shots overall, and they're worth a guide unlike a Skyray. So So they're worth a stealth suit guide.
What are you thinking? You thinking rail or missile?
Rail for sure.
And a pair, right? 180?
Yep, 180.
Because the third one costs just so much more.
Yeah, it's not worth it. I would rather run two men's in that case. But yeah, one broadside unit. If you run two broadside units, only one will be able to advance and shoot, so it can get risky depending on the terrain format. But one of them is absolutely awesome, and they pretty much survive every game. Your opponent's the last thing they want to shoot at.
Seeker missiles.
And missile drones. And then the upgrade is the War Gear support system, which lets it ignore hit mods, which is another reason I really like it. There's a lot of minuses to hit in the game right now, and ignoring hit mods is fantastic.
Yeah, it's very good. Very, very good. Especially helps you into things that might otherwise cause you problems, like, I mean, it helps into AdMech, right? And it helps into Death Guard, things like that, where you can just ignore the hit mods. Okay, where does that leave us in terms of points? Okay,
that leaves us at 1835. I think we're going to do one other change here, which is that I found the Firesight team to not be needed. I would rather throw the enhancement on the Enforcer commander, the more durable of the two commanders, and just use him, because you're going to have one of them on the board anyway.
How many points does that make him?
That makes him 100 points flat, because it's a 20-point enhancement. And that way we save a bunch of points on a lone op we don't really need. And then we're going to add the sauce, okay? You ready for the sauce, Jack?
The sauce boss?
Okay. The sauce is Rampagers. Rampagers open up a lot of interesting things in this detachment. Yep, they're 3-mans for 95 points. And the reason that you want to run them is, first of all, you want auxiliaries that want to get into your opponent's face. And Rampagers want to get in their face to do the buff for auxiliary cadre, and they also want to do some amount of damage. They open up mortal wounds, they open up the reroll wound stratagem that Crude have access to in this detachment. There's a lot of things that they can do for you that I think is very, very valuable. And there's a game in the Worm where I played against Jack's Orcs, and the Rampagers were just a really nice add.
Yeah, they're just thick. They have a lot of wounds. How many units are we thinking?
I think you go to at least 2 of the 3-mans. And we would have 45 points left, which is a really easy fix.
Is one more Crude Hound unit, or
we could just go straight to another Crude Hound unit, or we could upgrade one of the other units.
Wait, we have 45 points, you said?
Yes.
Damn, that's 10 shy of turning the Crutes into
Rampagers. Yeah, if we had 55, we'd be doing it.
We could turn a Crude Carnivore unit into Rampagers.
We could do that. We could also change a Fire Knife team to a Star Scythe team if we wanted to.
That would get us 65 points. I love the fact that these ignore hit mods and rerolls to hit.
Yep, you have 3 units that ignore hit mods, which is all very good. And then the Hammerheads, the Broadsides, and the Skyrays are really your main anti-elite, anti-tank. So what we can do for ease is just add the extra Crude Hounds in for now. But if you wanted to, you could kind of manipulate the points around a little bit in some of these units to try and get the 3rd unit of Rampagers. But I was running 2, and that felt good. They're a really nice heroic intervention that Tau normally don't have access to, because they'll go in, they can proc the mortals, and then they can go kill that thing, or at least say, hey, you don't kill both of my things that you charged.
Yeah. I mean, this seems pretty good.
I think this is a great list.
You've got a lot of Crute units that can run around. You got a lot of Vespid units, so they can run around with +1 OC. Doing that sort of stuff, and then you've got a good complement of shooting, right? Nothing crazy. This is why it's a singles list and a team's blunter, right? Your opponent has a really good list. The rest of your team doesn't have an answer for. Get in their Tau player and keep them to a close score.
Let's actually make the Crude. Chad makes a good point. Let's make the Crude Hound, the second one, a Crutox, because that has OC.
How many points?
Same exact points, just one of them.
Well, it does not get to be in the Crute party of hanging out with the Crute Hounds there.
But that way, I think you're going to have a legitimate problem with running many Crute Hounds, giving them OC. Most of them are going to stand around and just be a cheap screen, which I'd rather have OC so I could do an action at the same point. So that's me. All right. We got a question in chat here from Chaos King Plays, who says, for the Worm Gold, 3 months to get upgraded on the Discord. Is it 3 months at gold or 3 months total? It is 3 months at gold consecutively. Or on our VHX platform. Either one will count.
All right, we have some super chats here. We got Red Rum with a €2 super chat. Says, the best show is back with the 2 best hosts.
Heck yeah, we appreciate you, Red Rum. Thank you so much for always being on the content and enjoying every video.
And we got Jonathan Haynes with $2 Super Chat says, yay, good morning, guys. Good to see you here, Jonathan.
Good morning, Jonathan. Thanks so much for joining us.
Ryan G, $10 Super Chat says, all hail the one true Tyranid list, a Tyrannocyte, inside 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 a Tyrannocyte, and finally a Sporocyst inside the last one.
Russian doll sport.
That's right, the nesting dolls. Matryoshka dolls.
Never to be seen on stream. Thanks so much for the Super Chat. All right, let's go ahead and head over to list number 2.
All right, this one's in my wheelhouse, baby. This one, we got Angelic Inheritors. I don't know if anyone's been playing this, but I hear it's pretty darn good. So Angelic Inheritors is the character-based attachment. It's the one I took to LVO, got 3rd place with. Well done, me. And I am a big fan of it. I think it's probably the best way to play Blood Angels just because of the utility it provides and consistent damage with real ones to hit and wound. So let's take a look at this list. So we got a Captain and Jump Pack with Relic Shield and Thunderhammer and Blazing Icon for ignoring Overwatch. We got a Lieutenant with Prescient Flash to give Scout to a unit of Hellblasters. And as per TMF3's request, we are not getting rid of the Hellblasters, which is sad because it was the first thing I looked at when this list opened. But we're going to keep it in there. We're going to make good use of it. I do think Lieutenant is a pretty good way to use the Hellblasters because it gives them character for real ones, hit and wound, fallback, shoot, and charge. Very solid there. Gives them lethal hits in addition to sustained, which you can give them for a CP. And then Prescient Flash gives them Scout. So it's a very efficient infantry unit. I found 6-inch moving units to be not the best shooting platforms. But if you can put it central in a place where your opponent can't really avoid the shooting if they want to play the game, it is pretty solid. And then you can loan up 18 it for a CP because you don't have the Lascan Devastators that I was using. If I don't know your terrain format, I'm not going to recommend the Lascan and Devastators. You have to know you're going to have good angles to put them at. And if you don't, I wouldn't recommend them. We got a Lieutenant with Combi Weapon with Ordained Sacrifice. This guy was an absolute G at LVO. Basically, you just put him out on the center objective. Your opponent either shoots him to death and he stands back up and you get the primary, or they put something onto the objective, in which case you leave with his reactive move. And there's really no good way around it, basically. I've played a bunch of games. Nobody's found a good way around this dude other than just pray you roll the 1 on the stand-up, which has happened several times. Then you got the Sanguinor, who's absurd in this detachment. It has.
Proud of you, Jack.
It's such a sad feeling. I'm like, I'm about to get a 15. I got a 10. Okay, I got it. I got a 10.
It's like Drago failing his charge. It's just
in
happens. The stars.
Now, luckily, you still get to shoot the thing that they put forward. So you always want to make sure the Hellblasters are in a position to where if they shoot at the Lieutenant, the Hellblasters will shoot at them, right? So they walk out, Lieutenant walks back, Hellblasters shoot, walk out, shoot. And then the Lieutenant goes back on the center. And if they move out, you move the Lieutenant back, Hellblasters shoot. That's the push-pull, right, you're looking for. You got the Sanguinor, who's absurd in this detachment with the rerolls and the fallback and whatnot. Lieutenant Phobos Armor to go with the Reavers, to drop the Reavers in with Grav Shoots, move them D6 after shooting, and then charge. It's the one Fire and Fade that you can use out of reserves, or that you can use and still charge afterwards. You got Dante and Unisangard. So we got 5 Intercessors, 5 Jump Pack Intercessors, 5 more Jump Pack Intercessors, 10 Hellblasters, 5 Infiltrators, 5 Reavers, 5 Scouts, 3 Sanguinary Guard, 6 Sanguinary Guard, and 2 Ballistas. Number one thing I noticed about this list is you are light on effective damage, right? That's what's going to get you, by the way. Not the skirmish part of it. The skirmish part you've got on lock. In fact, I'm going to cut into that pretty savagely. You have a really good skirmish piece in the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. You have Ballistas that can push forward and things like that. What you need to have happen is not run out of damage. This Angelic Inheritors is great, but it has a tendency to run out of damage at a certain point in the game, and then you're struggling to hold on to a points lead. So we're going to address that. First things first. If you're spending 315 points on a Hellblaster unit, you can't afford any more like luxuries in your list. You just can't. So the first thing I'm going to cut is the Lieutenant and Phobos Armor with the Reavers. That package is great if you have the luxury of having 135 points to take on a skirmish unit. If you have that, it's good. But if you're taking a Hellblaster unit with a Lieutenant with an enhancement, we don't have room for that. We need more units that do damage. Same thing with the Sanguinary Guard. Sanguinary Guard are really good, A 6-man is a luxury, and it's not a luxury that you need. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn that into 3-man Sanguinary Guards because we need more units that do damage, right? So we're going to spread this 6-man. We're going to spread it so it exists in 3 places instead of just 2, right? So you can affect 3 areas of the board. The last thing you want is to have to send this unit out and have it just die, because it'll still die, right? You're not looking to overwhelm your opponent. So it'll still die, and then you're down almost 400 points because that's where Dante's going. No, we're going to split this up, and we're going to let you exist in more places of the board at once, basically. What we're going to do there is we are going to get you a second captain to go with it.
Yep. You really want to be led by characters here.
You basically have to be. Like, the units just come with them, basically. So that is what we're going to do there. Now, the one thing I'll note is that you can take a Power Fist, you can take a Mastercrafted Power Weapon. You do not take a Thunderhammer. The other 2 are perfectly viable options. I prefer the Relic Blade, but some people prefer the Power Fist. It's roughly even. I think the Relic Blade is better because it goes up to strength 6, and 6 versus 9 is like an interesting breakpoint where the extra attacks matter. But the Thunderhammer hits on 3s, and you cannot afford that. Even if it gets dev wounds, it's just not worth the miss, basically.
Has less attacks, right?
It has 5 attacks and it hits on 3s. So that means you're going to functionally get 1 less hit than the Power Fist a lot of the time. And you can also just go in and roll like 2 2s and just be like, I hit 3 times. The Relic Shield is cool, not super worth it. What I would say here is you're going to take either Fist or Blade. One of those 2. They're both perfectly reasonable.
And do you take the enhancement or you cut that?
I'm going to cut it for now, and we're going to see if we have points left at the end to put it back in, because it is also a luxury. I've not noticed the units needing to... they're also quite quick, so they can go behind a wall and then charge from behind that wall a decent amount of the time, or you just take the Overwatch, or they're not in a position to do the Overwatch effectively. So we're going to start with that. We're going to keep the Lieutenant in. You need Prescient Flash to make a 6-inch moving unit effective at getting where it needs to go. We're going to leave this where it is, the Sanguinor where it is, and Dante where it is. All that stays. Lieutenant and Phobos Armor, again, another luxury, and it's going to go. We just have to make room for things in this list. We just have to. JPI, also not particularly efficient in Angelic Inheritors.
Not without characters.
Not without characters, and I'm not giving them characters. Their profile's 4-1-1. Nah, even with the Impact Mortals and whatnot, we're cutting that. That gives us a sizable amount of points, and we are going to fill that with damage. We are a 50-50 shooting and combat army. So what that means is we need to have credible damage in shooting. And Ballistas, believe me, not it. We're going to leave them in the list because what they're good at is shooting multiple times and pushing onto objectives and being OC4 and being tough and not worth shooting at. So we're going to leave them in the list because they're good. But what they're not good at is being your one sole source of damage.
Nope.
Because what's going to happen is you're going to shoot and you're going to do upwards of a las cannon wound to your opponent every turn. It's not great. They come with their own rerolls, which is sick. I like Ballistas in the list, actually. My updated terrain format neutral list does have 2 of them, but not as the only shooting, believe you me. So these guys are going to push up onto objectives and be tough and be OC4 on them and screen, right? They're going to be forward screens, keeping your opponent back, but they're not going to be your only shooting. What is going to be your real shooting? Well, the Hellblasters and my favorite Space Marine shooting unit.
Every Space Marine favorite shooting unit.
I mean, basically.
It's in every good...
Vindicator.
The Vindicator.
A pair of Vindicators is a unit I would recommend to literally every single Space Marine list without exception. This list also just has Oath spare to give to the Vindicators. And boy, do the Vindicators love it.
Yep. Strength 14, amazing. You have AP3, D6 damage, good number of shots. And on top of that, T11 2-up save. It's a fantastic tank.
Yeah, what I've noticed with the list is that if you shoot at a target with a Vindicator and you charge it with Sanguinary Guard, that'll take care of it almost no matter what it is. Deathwing Knights, it's gone. You dealt with it, right? It doesn't matter. Vindicators are great because they can shoot into every target well. Is it a bunch of infantry? You get blast and D6 plus 3 shots. It's still pretty good. Is it a tank? Well, you strength 14, D6 damage. It's pretty good there. Is it tough infantry? Well, you're still pretty good there as well. Basically, no matter what target it is, if 2 Vindicators shoot it with Oath, it's dead. And if one Vindicator shoots it and a Sanguinary Guard squad charges it, it's also probably dead, and that is an amazing place to be. So, Vindicators synergize with the list really well, and I want to leave in the Ballistas. Basically, the way this is going to work is, on each flank, Ballistas is going to be the forward thing, and the Vindicator is going to be behind it. And your opponent has to engage with the Ballistas first. They don't want to do that. It's cheap, it's tough, it's very annoying to kill. And then the Vindicators will just get to shoot. So on this flank, there's going to be a Ballistas in front of a Vindicator, and on this flank, there's going to be a Ballistas plus a Vindicator, and then in the center, there's going to be the Hellblasters. That's your game plan. Now, eagle-eyed viewers might notice that this list is above 2,000 points. It is, in fact, 2,100. Sorry, infiltrators. You're gone. Basically, the plan here is you have the Ballistas screening. So the Ballistas will screen, scouts will do things in midfield, and that will keep enough people off of you that the infiltrators are worth cutting in exchange for the last Ballistas, basically. If you want more skirmish, the Ballistas are where you're going to find it. You cut the two of them, you put in like 3 skirmish units, and you're going to be worse in a straight up fight, but you're going to be a little bit better at the skirmish, and that's going to be good. Let me just double check and make sure. Double Vindicator, Scouts, Triple Sanguinary Guard, Hellblasters, 2 Ballistas, Intercessors, and then 6 characters. And unfortunately, we do not have points to put the enhancement back in. But what this list will do for you is you have good damage in shooting that has to be respected, and good damage in combat that has to be respected. And you need both of those in the list.
Yeah. Now, the Hellblaster package is a lot of points, and that is somewhere where you could get a lot of units as well, but that is the core of TMF3's list here. It wants to run the Hellblasters, and so that's why they're staying in here. I think the Ballistas, the other thing about them that they synergize really well with Vindicators is that Vindicators are 24-inch range, and some lists can stay outside of it for a decent amount of time with their key units. Ballistas say, cool, if you're in the firing angles, you're taking damage.
Yes.
And that's very helpful.
The Hellblasters here, if you wanted to do another infantry squad, which would be pretty interesting, you could take, it's roughly the same points cost actually. You would take 6 Eradicators with an Apothecary Biologist with Prescient Flash for exactly the same role. The Hellblasters are just different at doing it. But I would probably not run either of those if I were pressed, and I would just include like 3 or 4 skirmish units out of this. Like a couple of Reavers, probably... I'd probably take a squad of infiltrators, so that would leave us with, what is this? This is 315, so leave me with 215, and that's basically like scout and then some other stuff. Maybe a Reaver plus Lieutenant package, because at that point you can afford that luxury.
Yeah. So
Reaver plus Lieutenant package, another scout unit, an infiltrator unit, and that would probably be what I would do. But the Hellblasters do shoot respectably hard. But you just have to have the damage to back people off, and this list now has that.
Absolutely. Awesome. And now, heading on to list number 3. Oh, we got a question here from Matthew. Matthew Leader, thanks so much for $5 super chat. Does the Lone Op Lieutenant matter on WTC terrain with more cover on objectives?
Yes. That dude's absurd no matter what terrain format you play on. There will always be a call to move to a section of the board and exist there, especially like not every objective on WTC terrain is behind terrain. And even the ones that are, your opponent can move up and shoot into them a decent amount of the time. There will almost always be call to yo-yo a guy onto and off of the objective, and especially in WTC where you can go on the terrain feature, and then they move up and you just move behind the terrain feature, right? 6 inches will just get you completely off the terrain feature, and then they can't shoot you, and then you shoot them, right? There will always be call for that, no matter what terrain format you're playing on, unless you're playing like Night Fight, where you can only see 6 inches around at any point in time.
The other thing is Marines are relatively elite overall. You don't have tons of cheap trade resources, like especially in this archetype here. So having something that can go do area denial and then come back, and the next turn does cleanse and takes the objective. It just having something that can go do things that's relatively cheap that you use multiple times is 100% worth it.
Yes, that's a good point to make, because if the Lieutenant were even infiltrators here, right, roughly the same points cost, I would feel the need to cut things for more skirmish pieces. These Ballistas would probably not be in the list, and there would be more skirmish pieces in the list. But the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon can screen turn over turn, can do actions turn over turn, can hold objectives turn over turn. And so he kind of just acts like this repeatable skirmish unit. So he's like 3 skirmish units in one. And most of the time, your opponent can't go through him the long way. They can't charge him because you'll heroic him, you'll sanguinor into him, right? It just won't go well. So they have to shoot him, wait for him to stand up, shoot him again, and you've killed 2 of their resources in response, and that's bad for them. And that's something that he's basically 2. If they do that, he's 2 skirmish units in one. If they have to go onto the center and let him react a move over and over and over again, he's 5 skirmish units in one, and he's really good at that job.
Yeah. All right. Heading over, thanks so much for your super chats. We're going to head over to list number 3, which is going to be Charlie D's Adeptus Sororitas Hallowed Martyrs list. So all you Sisters fans who are getting on Jack and I's case about not loving Sisters, guess what? I put a lot of thought into Hallowed Martyrs for a bit because I was trying to help Nick practice for the World's Finals where he was going to be running Sisters. So we did a lot of Hallowed Martyrs testing. I actually really like this detachment. I also played against Jeff Kolodner at DreamHack Atlanta and learned a lot about the archetype there because he's been running that since the Index days. So let's get into this list here. Charlie's only kind of, you have to run this is the 10 Sacrosants. Just painted them up. He said they're gorgeous looking. We're going to run the Sacrosants. But everything else is kind of, we can play around with it. We are keeping Hallowed Martyrs as the detachment. So, that said, we have the Magifier here, who can go inside the Sacrosants or some of the other units. And one of the main things you're going to need to know about this detachment is it has a stratagem to stand back up characters. And you discard a miracle die, and you can get some amount of wounds back. It's D3 plus the amount of miracle dice that you discard, I believe. So, Canoness here, that has Saintly Example. When this character dies, you get additional miracle dice, which is very nice. It's 10-point enhancement. It's awesome. Morven Vol, you know Morven. She's in the top 10 epic heroes. Jack and I did that on Tuesday. She's amazing. Great character. Goes in the Paragons.
Dude, 390, I would take that unit in basically every list I write.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Palatine here, 75 points with Through Suffering Strength. This is a enhancement where she gets additional attack, a strength attack, and damage, or 2 of those if she is below half strength, I believe. Might be wounded. But she basically hits really hard in combat, and you can throw away a miracle dice so that every successful wound roll is immortal in addition to the normal damage. So she does a lot of nasty work.
She's very good at killing characters, too, because I believe when you do the mortal in addition, you precision, you spend a CP for it. I believe those also go on the character as well if you want.
They can.
Yeah.
Then the Demonifuge, which is an interesting, unique hero that's a lone op at Fight First. Junith gives additional CP.
That's quite nice. That's quite nice.
10 Battle Sister sticky objectives get split up by the Immolators. 2 Immolators here, strip cover. Sacrosants, durable combat unit. 10 Dominions can allow you to scout up the table with your Immolators.
Yeah, you split them up into the Immolator Scouts. You can deposit Dominions. They react to move back into the Immolator. It's still as annoying as it used to be.
100%. Novitiate Squad, they infiltrate, which can help stop pressure from getting on you very quickly. 2 Castigators, great tank for giving additional AP. So you strip cover with the Immolators, you give additional AP with the Castigators, you just murder key targets very easily. Those 3 Paragons for Vol, and then finally a Sororitas Rhino, probably for the Sacrosants, get them up the table as needed. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on. Let's remember what this detachment does. If you're wounded, you get +1 to hit. If you're below half strength, you get +1 to wound. So when you stand back up a character, which is one of their best strats, you can do really nasty things if your opponent doesn't have multi-phase damage in that area. So you need CP for that. There is a combat stratagem where you can use an infantry or walker unit to force your opponent to have to attack it if they're in engage range of it instead of something else. So they could charge into like Vol's unit. Well, let's not Vol's unit. They'll charge into your Battle Sisters, right?
Right.
And then you heroically intervene a character here, and it bases a bunch of the models. Let's say it bases 3 of the enemy models. Well, those 3 models will now have to swing into the Canoness and not the Battle Sisters, so the Battle Sisters get to live.
Yep, it's people mess this up all the time. It's models within an inch are forced to fight you. It's not models that could legally target you, so base to base doesn't count unless they're within an inch of you.
They have a 1 CP strat to shoot back at an enemy unit that shoots them, so it's really dangerous to swing and miss on them.
Because then they're +1 to hit, +1 to wound.
Yep, and then they slam you back. And there's a variety of other, you can get reroll hits in combat, reroll wounds if you're below half strength. There's some very good stratagems in here. It's actually quite a solid detachment. So let's start with the things that could probably use an immediate tweak. I personally am of the opinion that rhinos are just kind of a waste of points here. You probably want to just upgrade straight to an immolator if you want a transport. And you also have 3 units here, Battle Sisters, the Dominions, and the Novitiates, all of which want to be split up.
Yes, I noticed that.
But you can only split up 2 of them. And because we're playing Hollowed Martyrs here, we don't really need to stage up in the middle of the table early to get into our opponent like Bringers of Flame does. So I personally don't think the Dominions are needed. I really like Battle Sisters at 105 for OC2 bodies as sticky objectives. I think they're great as 5 model units. So I'd personally cut the Dominions.
Okay. Yeah, so what you'll notice we're doing in all these lists is we're figuring out, we have things we want to add to change what the list does and how it operates on the table. But in order to do that, obviously, you need to cut things as well. And so we're looking for inefficiencies, things that we think are a little bit subpar. They could even be like solid units, but are just not part of what the list is trying to do in our head.
Yep. So, now what else? Of the characters, Vol, absolute G, automatic, staying in. The Canonist with Saintly Example is fantastic. I personally think we want a second Canonist here. Once per game, they can pop a 2-up invul, and as we've mentioned, you can stand them back up. But there's another great enhancement for 20 points called Mantle of Ophelia that allows all damage that's coming in to be 1 damage. So it can be really annoying to actually finish that Canonist off, and I think it's worth it to get a second Canonist here. You know, you pop a 2-up invul, and every damage is 1 damage coming through. She's quite nasty to deal with.
So you're looking to add that in. How many?
We're going to cut that Magifier for sure.
Okay, good. How many points is a Canoness?
50, and then the 20-point Mantle of Ophelia will bring that Canoness to 70.
And Saintly Example is 10?
Yep.
10 for an extra D3 Miracle Dice?
Each time you die.
Which you can stand up. That is pretty good.
Especially with the Miracle Dice economy being quite a bit more restrictive. Like, all these rules to gain additional Miracle Dice become a lot more valuable when you don't have just a giant pile of them.
Mantle of Ophelia. And then we will put it on her. Yeah, you just get a big old pile of Miracle Dice from her dying, which you're going to make your opponent do at some point.
I'm going to force them to do it.
Twice.
Ideally. Okay, so out of the other characters, I don't think we can put the Palatine in the Sacrosanct. I think we're going to grab a different character to add to the Sacrosanct. And my opinion is we add a Hospitaller here. And I believe the Hospitaller is 50 points.
That sounds right.
Let's go check that real quick. And the reason you run a Hospitaller is because in your command phase, you can heal back a model. Or if you discard a Miracle Dice, and you'll have some ones that you don't really need, you can bring back D3 of them.
So why are we cutting the Magifier when it makes the Sacrosanct of a 2-up? Well, it's 65 points. They already have a 4-up invul.
D3 plus 1.
D3 plus 1. And it's just 65 points to make a Sacrosanct unit have a 2-up. It doesn't provide anything else of value to the unit, really. So what that means is you've taken a 150-point unit, 15 points a model, and you've made it a 215-point unit, 21.5 points a model. I would not pay that for a 2-up save. I would pay that for a 3-up save, right? I paid the 15 points a model for a 3-up save and a 4-up invul, and I would not pay it for the 21.5 for 2-up save, 4-up invul, basically.
And the Hospitaller also gives them a 5-up Phenopane, which can help their durability. But
that's way better. That's way better.
Really what you're doing here is you can only use the stand back up stratagem once per phase. So if you commit 3 characters and your opponent kills all 3 in their shooting phase, 1 character standing back up. So in my opinion, I think you want one objective, whether this is your expansion, this is the middle objective, where you have a great staging point, you put the Sacrosancts on the objective, not all of them, only a couple models, whatever you need to force a reaction that is worth it. You pull those models out of line of sight when they die, and then you heal back onto the objective.
I see someone in chat saying they're not that tanky that adding a Hospitaller matters. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. If you put the unit in front of your opponent and they tee off, it's going to die whether it's a 2-up save, a 1-up save, or a 0-up save. It doesn't matter. What this is doing is if your opponent, if they are in a position where your opponent can hit them but not with their full army, or doesn't want to hit them with their full army for whatever reason, and they get wounded, something that will happen very easily to the Sacrosancts, they will just heal right back. What is very good at killing Sacrosands? Damage 1 nonsense. Well, that 5 Feel No Pain makes a huge difference there. And so that's basically the goal, right? It's a unit that is annoying to kill all at once. Kill the whole thing.
In one activation.
In one activation. It's easy to chip. It's easy to chip that unit down. And if they chip it, doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. You just heal right back. And the 5 Feel No Pain will make it a lot more annoying to kill the entire thing. And if they commit enough to kill the entire thing and a swing down happens, you roll good, they roll bad, it happens. Suddenly you're left alive with like 2 models in the unit. With an Imagifier, that might as well be dead, right? Maybe you're on an objective and you hold it, but otherwise pointless. With a Hospitaller, you heal D3 plus 1, you run behind a wall, you heal another D3 plus 1, now you come back out and you're your full unit again.
So I think the thing that is, people will think this is a combat unit. It's actually a board control unit. It might do some combat in a game, but I'm not relying on the combat. I'm using it so that I can control an objective without having to use a character to stand back up on it to force a reaction. Instead, I'm putting like 4 Sacrosands on an objective, stringing the rest of the unit behind the wall, and saying, how much damage do you want to commit to this? You commit too much and you actually wipe the unit, cool, Vol's unit comes out and blows up your key unit, and that's that. Or you kill, 4 of them. All right, I'm behind the wall now. And you still have to put something on the objective, otherwise I heal back on and take it.
Yep. And also, it's only 200 points. So if it does, on the turn your army commits, die, okay.
So be it.
So be it. Right? It's going to be more annoying than your opponent wants to kill, right? Realistically.
Yeah.
So
I think if we're going to run Sacrosands, I think this is the best way, in my opinion.
It's just 200 points, and it's a unit that punishes your opponent whiffing on it while also making it kind of annoying to deal with.
The other tech choice that we really want in here, and I'm not the inventor, I saw this in the game I played against Jeff Glodner. Well, he warned me about it, and then I didn't fall for the trap, which is that you want penitent engines or mortifiers, at least 2 of them. And the reason is that if your opponent kills them in the early game, there's a 1 CP auto-explode stratagem, and they do Deadly Demise 1. So if you have in line of sight on your deployment line, penitent engine, and then outside of line of sight within 6 is your tanks, your immolators, your castigators, Vol's unit. All of a sudden, if your opponent kills the penitent engine, awesome. 1 CP auto explode. I take 1 mortal on everything around, and now all of that is +1 to hit the rest of the game. It's really good. So I think we grab 2 penitent engines. I like the ability to advance and charge on them personally. Yep. You could go for either of them. They're both good.
And they can make your opponent attack them. And you can put them in places where your opponent is not going, like your opponent needs to kill them. And then, nearby, how many points are they?
75 for 1. So we'll do 2 solos.
And then your opponent has to attack them, right? Maybe they're on an objective or whatnot. And then you make sure they have like 2 castigators within 6 inches. Boom! I'll just give both my castigators +1 to hit. So are we over points?
We're still in a good zone, but we're going to cut a couple things or change things around. Yes. So first one is the Palatine. I personally think that we switch the Palatine. This is something that Nick was running that I really liked, which is the Candace with the jump pack instead. Keep through suffering strength. But the cool thing about the Candace is she reduces a stratagem cost, which is pretty good. And you don't have to be leading unit to use it. So she can do the stand back up for 0 CP, which is very nice to help your CP economy. And more importantly, once per game, she can pop +3 attacks and dev wounds. And so with the enhancement, she minimum goes to 9 attacks at strength 6, AP2, flat 3 dev wounds.
What weapon is she taking? Is there only one option?
No, there's multiple. It's a Blessed Halberd because it has 5 attacks base, goes to 6 with the enhancement, possibly 7 if you're wounded. And then...
how many points is this?
She is going to be... she's 75 base, I think. Hold on. Well, she's going to be 100 points with the enhancement.
Just dropping in, rapid ingressing in for free, and then sprinting in and stabbing someone in the dome.
It's a lot of attacks. She will stand back up for free, so it helps your CP economy, and she's very speedy. I really like her off a rapid ingress play.
You can also just give her precision and just go snipe a character out of a unit.
Boom, 2 dev wounds, the 6 damage gone.
Go take a home objective, whatever you need, really, and then stand back up on when your opponent kills her. So if your opponent is like Tau or whatever, she drops in out of line of sight, runs in, stabs something. Your opponent kills her. She stands back up. She runs deeper and stabs something else.
She's going to go deep. That's for sure. Novitiates. I don't really care about the infiltrate. If my opponent wants to get close to this army, it's really good for this army. I don't care about trying to block that. So I would cut them for more Battle Sisters. I think the extra OC is more valuable personally.
You're thinking just another squad of Battle
Just
Sisters?
another squad of Battle Sisters.
All right. Where are we at in terms of points? Because I kind of want slightly more firepower in this list.
We have 70 points to play with about.
If we cut... Are we cutting any of this?
I personally think Celestine is amazing. You don't get to use the stand back up strat on her, but she does it natively. But she is a ball of jank like Calgar's unit with, okay, one of the Gemini is dead, tank on Celestine with 4 Phenopane. I really like her, and I would trade Junith and the Demonofuge for her personally. And she's 160. She's also very fast and great. I just like Celestine.
160?
Yeah, 160.
Yeah, she's good.
So that would leave us with 70 points to play with.
Okay, that's not quite getting us to...
Which would get us a Mortifier.
Get us a Mortifier. I don't really see a way to getting another tank in this list.
It would be cutting Celestine.
Well, I don't see it with...
You would cut Celestine and you would grab another Canoness or something like that.
Yeah, you cut Celestine. You have 70 left? Yeah, so you would cut Celestine, get a Canoness, get a Castigator, basically. It really depends what direction you want to go. Where are you leaning?
I personally don't think this list needs to shoot insanely hard. You have Vol's unit, you got 2 Immolators, 2 Castigators. It is literally about forcing your opponent out onto objectives every single turn and doing nasty work to them and forcing them to always commit multiple phases of damage into the open. And in that case, I don't really need one more Castigator. I think the jank and the extra characters are better personally. That's just me.
Got it. So
I think
you're
there's
thinking a Mortifier?
Yeah, I would just grab the Mortifier, and we've got plenty of skirmish pieces. We've got really good board control elements, and we've got a good amount of shooting. We're not relying on that.
Cool. All right. Well, you said something about you would play it to prove that sisters are still good, something like that.
I genuinely believe this list is very strong.
All right. Maybe we can get you on.
I'd love to play it. I love to play it. We got a lot of sisters love out there.
All right. Well, we'll see what we can do about that.
All right. So we'll head over here. Do we have any other super chats while we were doing that list?
I did not see any.
Okay. A lot of people were asking, how do you actually submit a list? The way to submit a list is if you are consecutively subscribed to the War Room for 3 months, whether that is YouTube Gold or our VHX platform, theworm.vhx.tv, you get access to the War Room Elite tag, and in there are the Fix My List and the Roast My List channels, which we'll be doing over the coming, I'd say about once a month we'll probably be doing it, maybe a little bit more if there's more interesting lists, something like that.
Yep.
And so feel free to submit a list in there if you have the tag. And once you do, try and submit lists with an interesting concept, maybe a detachment that isn't played as often. If you grab very popular tournament winning lists, those are the ones we're not going to pick.
Yeah.
This is designed for, to try and get interesting discussion about a list and about a faction. And you saw these 3 examples had a lot to discuss.
Yep. Now, what I'll say, all 3 of these lists, I think you can do very, very well with. I think all 3 of these lists are very solid when we're done with them, and you can do well with your fixed version of the list.
Absolutely. So if you are joining us, if you like this content, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about us. All of that massively helps us grow the channel. In addition, leave us a comment below letting us know what you think of Fix My List as a concept. Do you enjoy this? Do you want to see it more often? And, overall how you're feeling about the different army lists we edited here, whether you agree or disagree with some of the changes. And then if you want to see more content from us, or if you want to potentially participate and Fix My List by submitting your lists, check out the Worm at theworm.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial. There's content for every single faction in the game. And on top of that, there's access to our international Discord community where you can come on, hang out with us, and have a great time learning about the game, talking with other like-minded people across the world. All right, Mr. Jack. Hope you had a great time hanging out. I always have a great time hanging out with you. This has been, Jack and I haven't done this in a while. So
this has been a long time.
This was a lot of fun. And hope you enjoyed this one. We got Here's Horus, There's Horus everywhere with a super chat. Siege Sisters versus Jack. Angelic Inheritors with the Hellblasters. Heck yeah, we'll do it, baby. Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate your support. And we will see you all very soon for more content. So long for now.
Bye-bye.